Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. My name is Rick Nicholls. I'm the Member of Provincial Parliament for Chatham Kent, Essex, or at a federal level, it's known as Chatham Kent, Leamington, soon to be Leamington at the provincial level as well. First of all, I want to thank everyone. This is an unbelievable turnout, and I want to thank those who kind of gave my office a heads up, and so thank you, Phil, John, Dave, for the heads up, and others as well, to talk about this very important issue tonight. Leamington has been hard hit over the past few years, especially in the processing field with regards to Heinz. I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. And of course, Hybrid Canco, have taken over, and they've kind of grown, I understand, from 250 employees to about 420 and growing. But what was really hard hit at the time when Heinz had shut her down was the number of tomato growers. I think they'd gone from, help me with the number, I think it was 43 down to 20-something. Down to 10, and now it's growing a little bit as well. Well, again, the purpose of tonight's meeting is for us to basically hear from you. What we have found in a lot of cases is that their proper consultation isn't being done. And my office decided that we're going to do some consultation, and we're going to have you here. So we want to hear from you. We want to hear from you. We want to hear your issues and your concerns as well. It's also a privilege of mine to have with us tonight my colleague, Toby Barrett. Now, Toby has been in provincial politics for over 21 years, and at one point in time, serving under a couple of different agricultural ministers. He was the parliamentary assistant back in the day, and under Mike Harris' realm. And then now we're very fortunate to have Toby as our ag critic, and so we'll be giving Toby an opportunity to chat with you and tell you some of the things he's done. But again, as we all know, that the Commission is proposing to amend Regulation 440 to remove the provisions establishing negotiating agencies and to add provisions establishing an industry advisory committee. And of course, as we know, consequential amendments to the board's powers resulting from the proposed amendments will also be considered. That's what the proposal reads. And if you can figure that out, you're a better person than I am. Government sometimes. The other issue is, of course, they've given 45 days to hear feedback. So with that 45 days, is August 12th. Toby will talk more about this, but while I think about it, I'd like to kind of add the fact that I don't think 45 days is enough time. Again, proper consultation needs to be done, and that's what we're here tonight to do. And it won't just end with tonight's meetings either. We want to hear what your issues and concerns are. We know this is a pretty busy time for farmers. Why on earth would they, in fact, give a deadline right in the middle of your busy time? Well, I might have a thought or two towards that, but I'll keep that one to myself. So again, what I'd like to do is, again, our purpose tonight is to hear from you, the growers, and any others who may be affected by this change, so that collectively we can, in fact, put forward your concerns. But before that, I'm going to ask Toby to come on up and speak and bring to you up to date on what steps he has taken. So let's welcome Toby.
Thank you, Rick. And this is a very significant turnout. And I have a farm just north of Port Dover, and you don't get farmers coming out in the middle of summer for a meeting because you can't get off a tractor. And down our way, we're irrigating, and cucumber harvest started just a few days ago. Again, with the timing, as Rick mentioned, as an opposition member, and I've been the agriculture critic for a couple of years now. I guess I've had the job before and parliamentary assistant when we were in government. And what really tipped me off would be getting contacted by Rick, Monty McNaughton, Monty McNaughton, MPP, north of here, and Bob Bailey, MPP Julia Monroe up in Holland Marsh area, with concern, hearing from so many farmers, and I've certainly heard from the processing vegetable fellows down our way. We had a cucumber grower meeting last Friday, quite a spirited meeting. There's going to be another meeting this coming Friday, and probably a bigger crowd in spite of all the pressure trying to get the crop off. As Rick mentioned, there were just two things I just wanted to draw your attention to, and what's really important is for us to get further direction from people here. I know Rick's staff are here and they'll be taking notes. The action that I've taken, on July 15th, well actually before that I contacted the Minister of Agriculture's office. That's kind of how it works. Like Rick's elected, I'm elected, our Minister of Agriculture is elected. And we have a direct pipeline to cabinet ministers, and they have staff that do nothing but deal with MPPs like us. So we have that pipeline, but even this time of year, people are on holidays, like government workers are on holiday, It's really, there's some real barriers here. So I did write a formal letter July 15th, again, just running through how controversial this is. I hope the Minister of Agriculture knew about this at the time. Many of us here saw that posting from Farm Products, bring in a free market system. That's pretty dramatic, not just for tomatoes, not just for cucumbers, but for carrots up in Holland Marsh. There's, 13 or 14, as you may know, very diverse crops. I don't know whether carrot politics up in the Holland Marsh relates to tomato politics down here. And the big question in my mind is, for what I consider a fairly dramatic change, with the, we've got something like 21 marketing boards in the province of Ontario. My big question for Minister Leal was, what exactly is the problem or problems that we're trying to fix here, or what are we trying to solve? From what I can see, when you take away the the right to for the Ontario processing vegetable growers to negotiate a base price, for example, well, if you take that away, that pretty well takes away the raison d'etre, the whole reason why we've had the Growers Association. Just given the kind of the cut to the chase, because this is, I find it so complex. I've learned an awful lot just over supper tonight with Rick about tomatoes, and I ordered tomato soup, by the way. I know I'm in Leamington. I also had tomato sauce on my spaghetti. I get down here on occasion, and I'll probably take some tomatoes back with me, although we can grow them over our way too. But I think like a lot of areas in Northfolk County, we can grow just about anything, like down this way. But the challenge is selling it, as you know, and getting the crop off and getting the quality. Such a complex, controversial action for Farm Products to take, and that's reflected in the number of people that have come out in the room tonight. I imagine if most people here actually read that posting, because maybe a lot of people haven't, and it asked for feedback. And again, as an MPP, I rent most of my land now, but I know when during planting or during harvest, you cannot get off a tractor, and you're working on into night in the night as well. And one other quick question: this posting from Farm Products, the Ontario Farm Products Marketing Commission, there was a deadline of August 12th. We did a little survey with the cucumber growers last Friday morning. Everybody could come out because we got about 3 inches of rain, thankfully, that night. But we did a survey. We asked how many had gone on a computer or had written back to the Farm Products Marketing Commission. Again, that's the question here. How many here have had your say? Have you had time? So again, I see a few hands up. The meeting with the cucumber guys, it was just one fellow had found the time to be able to get back with his feedback. And that tells you something as well. You know, it's an expression we hear south of the border. You almost wonder if the system's rigged. I was talking to one farmer, and he said, this time of year, my mail goes over here, and I read it in the winter, because it's just so important to, you know, get your crop off. So again, the big question we keep asking is, what is the problem here? I've read that posting from Farm Products. It doesn't say why they're doing it. It doesn't give a rationale. It doesn't tell us what the problem is. We just kind of have to guess. And again, I asked in my letter, what are the mechanisms to get feedback from the industry? I've met very few farmers that have an awful lot at stake that have been able to get time on a computer or to get their thoughts back to the commission. And the other big question, why is this being rushed? Why August 12th? Why the 45-day period? Again, and I won't get into the details, things that you know. I just wanted to make sure the Minister of Agriculture knows we're dealing with very highly perishable product here. It's not like corn and soybeans. You can store it and follow the Chicago market. And in many of the commodities, small number of buyers or processors. Now, I'm very pleased to report, and I do thank the Minister of Agriculture. He wrote back 5 days later, and that doesn't happen usually, maybe because Rick and I are in opposition, but he wrote back 5 days later, and he indicated the Farm Products is reaching out to interested stakeholders. Have they reached out to people here? I don't know. It's easy to put that in a letter, but anybody had a meeting? Maybe you've been initiating some meetings or trying to get a meeting. Anyway, that's what the minister said. That was in his letter back on July 20th. And now one thing, and I'll just read this sentence out, and many people would know this, people who have, maybe been working on the board. And I'll just quote this. There was a couple of things that I thought were kind of positive or left the door open, for some leeway, but, and this is the way it works. So Minister Leo wrote back, and many would know this, if the Commission decides to implement its proposal, free market, and, basically gutting the association in my view, a party affected by the decision can file for reconsideration, that's the term, reconsideration, to the OFPMC, the Farm Products. A decision made by the Farm Products upon reconsideration may be reviewed by the Minister of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs. So the minister, he's indicated he's not sticking his nose into this, he's not saying anything, but he does have the power to review it, because we do live in a democracy, and he's elected and he represents you. I've always felt our Minister of Agriculture should be the Minister for Agriculture. They call it the Minister of Agriculture, but I'm pro-farmer, by the way. I don't apologize that to anybody, but I recognize there are other stakeholders and processors. I've spoken with a number of processors myself. We've lost so many processors down my way over the many years. We used to grow sweet peas years ago, and I used to work in the Culver House canning. I used to grade peas, but we don't do that anymore down Northfolk way. One second thing, I just want to let you know that the minister indicated when he wrote back And I brought copies of the letters here, my letter and the minister's letter, and I had no idea there'd be so many people here. He indicated, because the minister says, because I have the power to review it, it's inappropriate to comment. I don't know whether that's appropriate or not, but he, I guess they keep at arm's length anyway. And but he does. Here's something I thought was important. He indicates, and I'll read I'll quote it. The Minister Leo indicates the government of Ontario has not changed its policy of supporting regulated marketing, and continues to maintain Ontario's 21 marketing boards while respecting the delegated authority given to OF and the farm products under the legislation. So I just wanted to mention that. I wanted to mention that as well. A lot of my cucumber growers are ex-tobacco men. We lost our tobacco board. I don't want to wade into tobacco politics here. I know it used to be grown here years ago. Imperial used to have a warehouse at Kingsville. I remember that many, many years ago. But we have these boards for a reason. We have the Ministry of Agriculture and the ministry for a reason. I've thought we've always had a very, very good system in Ontario with respect to government dealing with farmers and processors and the food industry. And to me, this seems to be a very dramatic change. So I asked for two things in my letter. First of all, get rid of this August 12th deadline. That's kind of an easy ask of a minister. Let's give it till after harvest at minimum. Some people have said, well, we should be doing this in February when we usually have meetings. Secondly, we went through this with the pork a number of years ago, the single desk. There was a change in the marketing being considered, and they had public meetings. I mean, I'm having public meetings, and Rick's having public meetings, but we have government for a reason. We pay enough for it. Maybe government could be having some public meetings. So I would like to stop there. I apologize if I talk too long, because I'm here to also listen and to take notes and try and take back as much information as possible. You guys know a lot more about tomatoes and many of these other commodities than I do. So thank you very much for your time. Thanks for coming out. Thank you.
Thank you, Toby. One of the other things that my office has also done is we've sent a letter off to Jerry Commence, and it was under the guidance and direction of a couple of gentlemen that had visited my office in Chatham, and we had some asks in addition to what Toby was asking for. We were also saying, if the system isn't broken, why are you trying to fix it? And if you've got such a great idea, then you tell us, what's it going to look like? And that letter was sent out a couple of weeks ago, and we've yet to hear back from Mr. Kimmets. And I'll be optimistic and say that we will hear back. But on the pessimistic side of me, it's I don't know when. And we'll have to see. Before we move a little bit further, because this is really your meeting, I would like to, first of all, recognize some people here in the audience this evening. First of all, I want to thank CFTV-34. They are, in fact, videotaping, recording this particular session, and they'll be showing it on their TV channel. Also, I'd like to recognize His Worship Mayor Patterson and a couple of his councilors, Councilor Verbeek and Councilor Dunn, for being here this evening. Also, on the economic development side, again, I'd like to recognize Janine Lassaline Bergeland, and of course from Leamington and from Chatham Kent on the economic development side, and our ag guy, as we call him in Chatham Kent, Kim Cooper as well. So again, thank you very much for opening up your chamber to us so that we can have this meeting. It's a very important meeting. We know how important agriculture is, especially to the Leamington area as well. Having said that, I think what we'll do is, I believe that microphone over there can be put on, and the microphone over there can be put on. And here's what I'm going to ask us to do. If you have a question or a comment, I would ask that you would go over to the side microphones, and so that we can kind of see you as well. State your name, please, and then we'll give you an opportunity to voice your concern. Now, again, what I don't want to do, we know what a problem is, but our objective here tonight, one of my objectives tonight is, as I said earlier, we want to hear your concerns. But secondly, if you have ideas and suggestions, positive ideas and suggestions as to how it can be improved, maybe I look at it this way: a good idea doesn't care who owns it. So share your thoughts and ideas. The only bad question that might be raised is the one that's never asked. So again, now I know in a group this size, nobody really likes to go first. So who'd like to go second? Oh, come on, don't be shy. Don't be shy. I'm sure you've got some issues and some concerns. Gentlemen here, I almost caught you because, you were scratching your eye, and I thought, well, that was kind of an indication. Dave, come on up and let us know what's on your mind.
Thank you, Rick. Thanks, Toby, for coming as well. Each one of us as producers and stakeholders has been invited to comment and in this 45-day period. And so rather than me ramble at the microphone, I took a good chunk of my yesterday afternoon and wrote my response to the commission.
Good.
And rather than ramble at the microphone right now, if I may, I'll read what I wrote. I did sleep on it and edit it this morning, so I think it's more fit for human consumption. Greetings, commission members. My name is David Epp, and I, together with my brother and father, have been involved in processing vegetable production our entire farming careers. Actually, beginning with my grandfather in 1950. We've weathered many changes in the industry over the years, changes in agronomic practices, changes in external competitive forces, and changes in the internal business economy within which we operate. However, nothing compares to the implications of the proposed changes to Regulation 440. The orderly marketing system provides for a balance of power within the value chain that provides processing vegetables, a perishable crop, from the field through our processing partners, then onto the various marketing channels. The system does not guarantee us with a profit at the farm gate, but it does provide some stability that there will be an opportunity to receive as a price for our crops what a competitive market will allow. The confidence in the system allows us to invest. We do not invest in a 6-month or a 1-year time horizon. Investments in equipment, land, etc. require a much longer time horizon, and therefore one needs to have the confidence in a price negotiating and not setting mechanism that provides for the opportunity of reaching a fair competitive price. Absent this system, there will not be a primary processing industry of much consequence. Perhaps a few large growers, undercutting each other to curry processor favor, might see a wholesale system change to their benefit. I do not see an industry or the consumer served in the long term in this scenario. This vision will not result in greater demand, be it processor or consumer, or lower consumer prices, or lead to a more competitive industry to face external competition. In fact, the Australian tomato industry is a prime example of what's being contemplated in this proposal. This industry was deregulated about 15 years ago. Prior to deregulation, they produced almost as much as we do here in Ontario, about 400 to 500,000 tons, with 50 to 60 growers. Within a few short years of deregulation, their grower base had shrunk to a dozen growers, with total volumes nearly halved, and imports into Australia increased to cover the shortfall in the market. I visited this industry twice already and know some of its participants very well. In fact, I will be there again in 2 weeks and participate in a grower meeting dealing with agronomic issues, and will learn if they've recovered to pre-deregulation volumes. My latest information shows that they have not. The forces that led to the creation of the Ontario Processing Vegetable Growers are still very much at play today. These are forces embedded in human nature. That is not a negative aspersion cast on all of our processors or our fellow growers. Rather, these are forces embedded in human nature. Once one processor finds one vulnerable grower and takes advantage, all other processors will be forced by local market forces to act in the same manner. And thus will begin the downward spiral of the industry. It will self-destruct rather than maintain some cohesion, which allows us to tackle competition from beyond our borders, a far greater threat and a greater opportunity. If the intent of the proposed changes is to address the Premier's challenge to increase processing jobs in Ontario, then this proposal is counterproductive. Raw product pricing is competitive, and the system is responsive to market forces. Unfortunately, other policies which govern the environment that processors and growers must compete in this province are not competitive, not subject to market forces from the much greater, larger market from within Ontario must compete. The intent of this letter is not to be seen as being opposed to change in the industry. There's always the opportunity for change for the positive and the benefit of the entire value chain. There's a voluntary industry advisory committee that meets regularly to oversee and plan industry conventions. In addition, the industry's generated research dollars are allocated on the basis of consultation with growers and processors. The structure is also in place to discuss the process of price negotiation and attempt to come to a common understanding and recommendations. However, the process of leading an industry to believe that a minor change is being contemplated and then ramming a revolutionary upheaval through an industry through a 45-day consultation period in the midst of a drought and the natural busiest time of year for producers smacks of another agenda at play. There can be a proper process for considering change of this magnitude, a fully consultative process that is transparent and that requires more reflective time. Regulations that govern this industry came into force as a result of an expression of grower opinion, a vote. Surely, such an expression could be taken into consideration again when proposing such changes, at least in a society that prides itself on democratic, open, and transparent process. In closing, if I may use a metaphor to express my view of the present situation, I see the present processing vegetable orderly marketing system as an open boat sailing across turbulent waters in the market here in Ontario, buffeted by the winds of retail concentration, uncompetitive energy policies, unscientifically based regulations, and nearby strong foreign competition. The amendment to Regulation 440 proposes to sink this boat to the bottom of the sea by removing collective bargaining rights from producers. Oh yes, there could be a compromise. But if the compromise involves existing 100 feet below the surface versus the bottom of the sea, i.e. no collective bargaining, no final arbitration to settle price, then there is nothing to be gained by compromise. The boat is not a submarine. However, if compromise is proposed to steer the ship in a different direction through these turbulent times or sail in a different manner, then there's a basis of discussion, open and transparent discussion that might see the light of day, as opposed to a hurried consultation period in the midst of the busiest time of year for industry participants. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, David. I know you put a lot of time, effort, and thought into that, and of course, I think you hit a home run with that with that letter. Thank you for that. Again, we're going to open it up for more dialogue from anyone who has a thought or an issue or concern. Please feel free. This is your opportunity. It's an open forum, so don't be shy. Tell us what's going through your mind. What are your issues? Now, you came here for a reason. And I'm sure that many of us in this room want to hear what your reasons are, and what your concerns are. Don't worry about trying to top Dave's letter. We should have had you go last, Dave. Then you would have summarized everything, I'm sure. Here's the gentleman coming up here now. I appreciate that. Please tell us your name when you come up. Thank you.
Good evening, Paul Thiessen. I certainly won't be anywhere as savvy as Dave was on there. That was a very good job, very well written letter. We just have a lot of questions. Questions are, how did you come to this decision that you're going to suddenly tear our marketing system apart? Questions are you doing the same thing to other marketing boards? Give us some reasons why you're doing this so that we can actually create a response. They're looking for a response back to or some ideas. it's hard to come up with ideas when we don't know what the reasons are for tearing it apart. Is this a political agenda? Is it a personal agenda? It's certainly looking that way. When you have zero transparency in the process, what else can it be? We need some of those answers, and we need them soon. And I think that we don't need to throw out the whole system. Sure, it might need tweaking. Every system can be tweaked and changed a little bit. That's progress. But throwing out a democratic system is not progress. And that's what we have currently. What more novel idea than two sides sitting down together, talking things out, and if they don't come to an agreement, they bring in a third party for final offer arbitration. Democratic system. We need to keep that. We don't need a dictatorship.
Thank you very much. Now, I know you're sitting there thinking, you can top that. Here comes the gentleman. Thank you very much. Tell us your name, please. Oh, is the microphone on? Hit the button. There you go.
Here it's on?
Yeah,
Okay.
tell us your name again, please.
Tom Dick. My question is about the Farm Products Marketing Board as far as representation as local growers or from Essex or Kent County. Doesn't seem to be no representation at all. Seems there's cattlemen on there. I don't know who's all on. There's one processor, but nothing there for us. If you guys could find out how that works, and we have no say.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Dick. Appreciate that. Someone else? Someone else? I almost feel like I want to become an auctioneer and try and get some people up here. No, it's important. This is your meeting, and so I look out. I see some people from Chatham Kent. Scott, good to see you here tonight. Mr. Kerr, good to see you here, sir. And Mr. Bradley, good to see you here. And yeah, your hair color's the same as mine. How come? I guess we go back a few years. And yeah, how many are here from the Dresden area? Ah, okay. Well, what are some of the issues and concerns from that Dresden area that you'd like to share with us? Because you came a long ways, and I thank you for that. I thank you for that. You probably didn't appoint a spokesperson, so I can appoint one if you like. You came a long ways. What was on your mind? We're looking for ideas. I know you're looking for answers. And I think we can combine ideas and answers. Any other thoughts? Any other issues? Sure, sure. Okay. This gentleman right here first. Go ahead, sir. Tell us your name, please.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Francis Dobler, Chair of the Ontario Processing Vegetable Growers, and we'd just like to add to the forum here. We respect the Marketing Commission's ability to make changes to regulation, and we're willing to work with them anytime to add some transparency, some clarification and understanding to what they mean. We're also willing to work with the processing industry and all other players. And my suggestion is that we have them all at the table simultaneously, as well as the federal ag people, to have this type of lack of transparency that's occurred, whether it's intentional or not. I'm not have any knowledge of either way, is a flawed system that doesn't allow everybody's input into it, including the Ontario provincial directors that are here. We've been very frustrated with the system, and meanwhile we're very willing, and we want to make this very clear, very willing to work with all players to enhance the industry in any manner possible. Again, that's our open offer to all players in the industry, both provincial and federal, and the processors. That's pretty well all I have to say. If there's any questions from our growers, this is probably a good time where we're elected representatives. We do the best to answer questions. Unfortunately, we have been unable to do so because we've had such poor communication with farm products. And I'm not sure if it's their busy agenda, but one thing's for sure, us on the farm, we have a very busy agenda. We're working 7 days a week, and this is not a good forum to properly represent our growers. With that,
We'll open up for some questions to Francis.
yes. We have a meeting on August 3rd with farm products and a growers meeting at Club Latinas, and we're hoping to shed some light to the situation. Again, it's just a matter of going through the process and trying to figure out exactly what they mean and how they plan to implement this regulation change. Above all, anybody answering to this process and giving a response, make sure you copy both the minister, the deputy minister, and the Fed minister of agriculture, so that all people are aware of what's going on. Again, any questions?
And hopefully the veg board too.
Well, yes, the veg board too. Sorry. Obviously.
Any other questions for Francis? Yes, sir.
Is the other commodity boards aware of what we're going through? Is seed corn next? Is potatoes next? Asparagus? Apples? We negotiate juice price? What's the ulterior motive of the government of Ontario?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I've spoken personally with some other of the boards. Egg board has been basically approached in the same manner, although somewhat different, because taking away your price setting ability in terms and condition is a phenomenon that, you know, is I don't understand in a democratic society, that you're not allowed to have an organized bargaining in any form or manner. I mean, I go home and I have 2 daughters and a wife, and I know what organized bargaining is all about. Like, I mean, I think it's just a fact in you know, democratic society that there's just, you have to be willing to listen and willing to work with everybody in a frank and open discussion, and we're not having that, and it's very frustrating. You know, maybe that's my personal opinion, but I'm very surprised. That's all I can say. And looking forward to any frank and open discussion with all the players in the industry, as well as all segments of government. And, you know, we have lots of good people. It's just a matter of getting them to the table.
Very good. Any other comments? Yes, sir.
Jeff Wilson.
Hello, Jeff.
Chair of the seed corn board, and we have been in contact with farm products. And what they're telling us now with this regulation 440, we're not going to be effective for now. So if we allow into that, I think right now things are working okay. Not to say they're not working on a vegetable board, but they're going to leave us alone for now. But once you get that regulation sitting there, all the boards can get put into effect.
Operative words, for now. For now, exactly. And where's that transparency? Let's let it be known. Yes, sir.
Haldiman from Dresden.
Yes, sir.
Has there been, question for Francis, has there been any of the processors that have been publicly disgruntled by the actions of the board? Like, 'cause we have not heard anything to move to this conclusion. You know, if it's fair pricing, it's fair pricing. Once you pit the growers against each other, you know, it just leads to the downfall of the industry. So there must be some behind the scenes things that have to be brought to light. They can't just bring this forward without any consultation to a big grower body. Has anything been brought to light at all from any of the processors of why this has been brought forward?
The problem is when you make comment and change, such a drastic change in the industry, it puts everybody at, in a state of shock almost. And there has been very little communication with the processors since. We'll be going into bargaining probably November, December. It's going to be very difficult to bargain with anybody across the table when we don't know the rules. I really can't see how this type of society we live in can make a decision that, was brought together in over 70 years of political will and very intelligent people that were elected to their positions, and do that in 45 days. It seems phenomenally unreasonable to me, just in the fact of the timeliness. It needs that frank and open discussion. You're putting 70 years of work to bed, and there's a lot of history there and a lot of reasons why it occurred. The ability, originally farm products was put into use basically to try to level the playing field between the growers and the buyers. And what happens is now there's even less buyers and there's less growers. But the strength and the power is really in a small area. And it's going to have a huge effect to everything from, basically private money being available. I mean, anytime you deregulate something this quick without a thorough study and a thorough analysis and then a plan, an executable plan that probably should be done over 3 years, to me is just not acceptable. But that's, again, my personal opinion, right? I just don't see it. I wouldn't do it on my farm, right? I just wouldn't do it. It's just not a good business plan.
So like long-standing growers, I think we need some statements from our processors to let us know where we stand. Like, is that how they want to treat us as a grower? Sure, galvanize us one way or another if we knew where they stood. We all deserve to be treated fairly.
Agreed. Agreed. Any other comments or questions for Francis? Yes, Toby.
Could I ask a question, Francis? I'm going through negotiation right now. I bought a tractor 2 nights ago, and my wife must have kind of screwed up the last room in our house now.
You understand that?
When did this start? Like, when was there an inkling? I know there was discussion about some changes, but people I've been chatting with, there was no indication at all that it would be of this magnitude. And the reason I ask is many of us have been, I've been going to farm meetings back to my grandfather's day, and I think back then sheep politics and cattle, and the meetings go on forever and ever, and get you through the winter, I guess. But that is part of the tradition that we have had, and I guess and I think of OFA and Christian farmers. There's so much time spent in deliberation, because in the business that we're in, you cannot make mistakes. You've got to work it all out ahead of time. You got to work it out on paper. You can't make a mistake in the field in the kind of business that we're in. So I guess my question: when did this start? Was there any indication at all that there was anything of this magnitude coming?
Not really. The first proposal we had for change was done in March, and we've asked for clarification on why they made the change they did to start the next proposal to 440, Regulation 440, and we have not ever received an answer, because we had an outstanding reply from our growers. Now, mind you, it's open to the industry, but I would assume that, the industry is probably made up mostly of growers and processors, and the outside people that will be affected, of course, is all the, the banking and the side industries. So then we got this, and we haven't had very little conversation at all with farm products. It's just been, maybe just maybe a miscue on their part, but considering the importance of the decision they're making, I would think they would be out there and actually contacting every farmer individually. I mean, that's whose livelihoods they're affecting, right?
I could just mention again that it almost, to me, it feels like a mistake was made, or somebody's just kind of rammed this through almost, or ramming it through unilaterally. As parliamentarians, like Rick and I, we don't really stick our nose into regulation. You know, the bureaucrats do that. We deal with legislation, and we debate the legislation forever. It goes on forever. Right now, there's a committee traveling the province. I think they're going to be in London this Wednesday with respect to fundraising, you know, the big money boys that influence political decisions. And, you know, to her credit, the Premier has agreed to public hearings. I don't know whether there will be any real change on that, but traditionally, and the same with farm meetings, you know, we discuss things forever, maybe too long, but in the long run, everybody that goes to the meetings anyway is involved, and in the long run, it does pay off. Involvement breeds commitment. You make a snap decision, and there's not the buy-in from other people, it just becomes a short-term thing and leads to even more problems. And then the Minister of Agriculture, if something like this goes through, he's going to have the processors and the growers banging on his door all the time. And I've certainly sat in on meetings many years ago, growers maybe 20 years ago, and we like to think that this system was working quite well. The minister doesn't want to have all you guys sitting in his office, you know. That's why we have these agencies and these boards and these commissions in a very complex system of agribusiness and food that we have in this rich province. So I just think it's short-term thinking. It's almost like one person's made up their decision and didn't talk to anybody else, and you gotta consult. You just, I don't know, always get those second and third and fourth opinions.
It's the old adage, don't confuse me with facts, my mind's made up. Yes, sir. You want to come up to a microphone, Doug?
I don't think I can speak on that.
Well, it's for the TV.
Is Regulation 440 the only thing they're after? Why is Farm Products Marketing Commission already stating that they're prepared to appoint a committee to look after industry requirements? Are they not looking at eliminating the marketing board?
Anybody care to answer that one?
That would be that industry advisory committee. So I don't know whether that replaces the growers, where you get to give advice, but not negotiate. That's kind of an unknown. It's just a sentence in the posting. Posting only seemed to be one page. And the creation of a new industry advisory committee. But again, no explanation of its mandate or, you know, you're going to vote in favor of something, it's know what it is.
Speaking along those lines,
You want to tell us who you are, please?
Ron Van Dam, and tomato grower north of Wallaceburg.
Thanks, Ron.
And speaking along those lines, we don't know what capacity an advisory committee will have, but currently the Vegetable Growers Association, while we negotiate price, that's only one component of what we do. There's terms and conditions, there's delivery quotas, there's all the aspects. There's plant production, like what we pay for plants. There's all aspects of this contract that have been developed over years and years and years. And it's been tweaked and it changes. It's had to react to what the Premier has said. They want to go to more an open market, but we've reacted to market factors all through the years. You know, we've survived currency fluctuations from $1.10 to 60. We've survived the when they took the tariff away back in the 80s, and we had to adapt to that. We've had to adapt volumes to one of our major customers closing. And so we do react to free market factors of our industry. And to now say that, you know, they want to go to a free market system, you know, somebody's going to have to explain what they mean by that, because, you know, we do nothing but react to free market principles. You know, we don't limit the supply, and there's more to this industry than price. The other thing we do also, we fund research. We guide the research. We don't just write a check. We sit down with the researchers at our research institutions across Ontario, and sit down and develop those programs to make sure that they're relevant to the industry, relevant to the problems that we're having today. So to say you're going to replace us with an advisory committee, it'd be, to me, you know, where would this committee start? Well, they would almost have to look at where we are today and say, well, that's what the advisory committee would do. So there's a lot of unknowns. You know, it's easy to look at this and say, well, we can do that. But, you know, knowing a little bit about something sometimes is a dangerous thing. And this is a complex industry. You know, we have 97 growers that supply the processing tomatoes basically for the entire country. You know, this is where we grow processing tomatoes in Canada, right here. And unless we want to just, you know, rely on imports all the time, if we want an industry in Canada, this is where it is. And it's a very small group, and it's you know, it's not something that's simple. And when this thing gets out of whack, it can fall apart and spin out of control very quickly and very easy. The other thing that I think we have to keep in mind, you know, we provide a raw product to processors. That raw product, in a lot of cases, makes up, in all cases, obviously, only makes up one component of the cost of the finished good. I can go to the grocery store and I can buy a $2.50 can of tomatoes, and I can buy a $1 can of tomatoes. And that price difference is just on whether the store decided to run a sale or not. So when we look at what we do, you know, to say we're going to have a huge impact on what the consumer's food budget is by changing this system, that doesn't jive. You know, if we shaved 5 cents or 10 cents off of a can of tomatoes, and the average consumer only buys 4 cans of tomatoes a month, you know, we have, that's a small impact on the overall food budget. So we have to, you know, we have to focus on what we're doing. And we don't want to throw an industry out of whack for just because we didn't know. You know, this took 70 years to develop. And if you go on the ministry's website, they outline on the Ministry of Ag and Food's website the history of why this method of price discovery and negotiating terms come to be, and it's well written. And you know, I welcome anybody to look that up and read it. Those same factors that were in the 20s and the 30s and then in the 40s, when this method that we use today took shape, are still the exact same fundamental factors that affect our industry today. And, you know, this government will come and go. This commission will come and go. This has been 70 years in the making, and we don't want to lose it in 45 days.
Well said. Thank you, Ron. Someone else? Yes, sir. Come on up.
Say that there is somebody from the Farm Products Marketing Commission here, there are people from the agency here.
I don't know. No, not, no. My staffers say no. So- David?
Dave again. You gentlemen were looking for some direction or some advice or some comment. Let me pick up with what Ron said, and you used the term "they." I think that's one of the points of confusion here in a lot of our growers' minds. Who is they that's directing us? Certainly we're aware of the Premier's mandate to increase processing jobs. So is the removal of collective bargaining rights from growers, is that part of the provincial strategy for accomplishing that aim? That's a question. I think that's a question that perhaps you gentlemen can follow up with. Or is this a mandate from elsewhere? Is this a mandate from the Commission? I don't think we know. I don't think we know whether this is a government initiative where the Commission is being directed, or is this coming from somewhere else? Because if it's a provincial initiative to remove collective bargaining rights, it goes well beyond vegetables, well beyond seed corn, well beyond seedlings. That's got huge implications, and that's a public policy. Or if it's just within the Commission, then the questions, the two basic questions, Toby, that you asked in your letter are very, very valid. What problem is trying to be addressed here, and why 45 days? Thank you.
Okay, thanks, David. Two very critical questions that need answer, and we all need those answers. Someone else? Someone else? Thank you, John.
John Luckty. Is this on?
You're good. No, it's on. Yeah.
Okay, John Luckty, guy from Kent County, Provincial Director, and really on the whole, the provincial directors aren't going to say much. We're here to listen. Francis has said it well. But there's far more. There's things that we will maybe say, okay, but there's things we will not give up, folks. If they're going to take it away from us, you're not going to have a board. So there is a fight here. Simple things like even contract security. There's probably people in this room that were put on term notice by Heinz at one time and other companies. That will be gone, folks. Things like that. Last year, Bonwell, Agricor sat in our shop on September the 23rd to resolve what portion of the peas they were responsible for not harvesting and what Agricor was responsible for. That won't happen in the future. I made the comment here last week when there was 40 acres of cucumbers bypassing Kent County, the Agricor wasn't responsible for. I said to the one guy that was not too concerned about losing these regulations, I says, Hartong won't pay for that next year if this is gone. Don't kid yourself. It'll be the American system. It's too bad. You haven't got it. But in the American system, they do have some security on finances, which we don't have in Ontario. Even our good conservatives never gave that to us to protect us, and they have that in Quebec as well. So, you know, that's why we hold near and dear to our heart payment provisions within weeks. And the processors would like the tomatoes to be paid, which we did work with Heinz that time to get it spread out, but that was all secured and done. But sure, they would like that paid over 6-7 months. But if you don't have security on that product, and our bankers have security because they lend it to them or labor, and you're looking at an individual that did deliver $50,000 worth of tomatoes one year and didn't get paid for them. That's why I hold this legislation near and dear to my heart. I guess there was one guy when I made a comment that writes in the Ontario Farmer says, well, things have changed in the 60 years because I have a contract at home from my dad from 1937, so one-page document. This continues to evolve because of situations that occurred, and it will continue to evolve, and we've continued to work on it. And the prime example I give, I'm chair of the Ontario Cucumber Division. There's as many cucumbers grown in Ontario this year as we've ever grown, and we only have a couple small, good, minor processors. Bics are gone. You still see Bics on the label. They could well be Ontario cucumbers, but they go across the border and be packed. Is our cost of raw product too high to do that? I have a hard time believing that. We have fought, and I've been lashed by growers at times for not getting a good enough price. At least you have the opportunity to do it under the system we have. We change that system, you won't have, folks.
Thank you, John. Thank you. We have another gentleman. Please tell us your name.
Kevin Epp, tomato farmer from Leamington. As a young producer, just starting to cut my teeth in this industry, I think the proposed change to a free market system will squish margins tighter and tighter, and that in an era when we finally had youth flock back to agriculture, this is going to create something where youth can't afford to come back to the farm anymore. And you're going to squeeze out the new generation that's going to invest and grow this industry. I think it's a very short-sighted maneuver. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Someone else. You know, the youth is our future, right? Our youth is our future. I fight for the family farms as well. I don't want to see family farms lost. You invest huge dollars in equipment and so on, and all of a sudden, as our young Mr. Epp has said, you know, margins will get tighter and tighter, and it'll be discouraging for our young farmers to, you know, grasp hold of the combine or the tractor steering wheel and lead into the future. So we need to fight. We need to fight long. We need to fight hard. We need our voice to be heard. And we don't need to allow ourselves to be bullied. That's a term that this government talks about a lot. They say how bad it is to bully. And yet Toby and I would probably say that they're probably they don't practice what they preach in that regard. I don't want to see that happen to this industry at all. I don't want to see it happen to you. Someone else. Yes, sir. Come on up.
Just wondering,
Luke Pinsino. Yes, Luke.
just wondering if, are we being too quiet about it? We need more media coverage or being more militant to bring attention to government and public about it.
Okay, so the question, go ahead.
Like, you're from government, would that help?
So the question is, are we being too quiet as a group or an organization? Well, you know what? When it comes to something, when it comes to your livelihood, when it comes to the future of the family farm, I don't think you can be loud enough.
Just what I'm saying is, do we need to have block roads or get the public involved?
Travel down the 401 again?
No, but I'm saying, media brings
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
through the media that you, and so if you get the media's attention, it gets to the government.
Luke, very valid point, and that's one of the reasons why we're having, Toby and I have called this meeting, and my team have called this meeting tonight. And we have media here, and there will be coverage, but that's just a start. That's just a start. This is just here in Leamington, you know, and probably representative of Chatham Kent and Leamington. But what about all the others? 107 ridings in the province of Ontario. And we need to be loud, and our voices need to be heard. Because you're fighting for your lives. Really and truly. Come on over here, Toby.
I know that, so that question came up at the cucumber meeting down my way, Elgin, Northfolk, about activism, and there's a number of ex-tobacco men there that grow cucumbers, and I've actually probably attended just about every tractor rally in Ontario over the last 18 years, starting in Eastern Ontario. It's always a price of corn thing, but and you never know how that paid off either. And the public, I don't know whether they really understood why we shut down the 401 over the other side of London there, or even going into Ottawa, and like I say, I've attended all of them. One thing that did come up at the meeting last Friday was, and it was, as has been said, with the processing vegetable growers, you've got a 70-year-old organization. We have a number of other organizations that have been around for years, farm organizations, and I've always felt in good times or in bad, our strength has always been the farm organizations. And the Ministry of Agriculture, which is one of the oldest ministries in Ontario, I guess it is the oldest one really, has always recognized that. You know, ministry was always there to help bring along farm organizations, whether it's 4-H or junior farmers or the co-ops. So our strength has always been the organizations. And I feel in this case, and others have said this to me, not just the Growers Association or seedlings or what have you, but many of us are members of OFA, Christian Farmers, NFU, and of course the other commodity groups. And I know some people are reaching out. Many of us grow other cash crop. You know, you're members of other organizations anyway. I think it's very important, and now's the time, to make sure that the other organizations are helping out. I know when we lost the tobacco board, I would say nobody really helped, but then tobacco was a pretty hard sell. You're dealing with a very, very healthy product, a very, you know, as far as the public is concerned. And the other thing that does come to mind, I've always felt, well, tobacco, first they came for tobacco, maybe for valid reasons. I mean, we're still growing just about as much tobacco, but very few growers now, and half of it's illegal, by the way. I don't know whether you know that. There's a lot of money being made in tobacco, but no one's paying taxes on it. It's out of control. That has gone out of control after we lost the Tobacco Marketing Board that was established back in the 1950s. When it was killed off, it was about 55 years old. But you just raises that specter of, okay, they came for tobacco and I didn't do anything. Then they came for the processing vegetable guys and I didn't do anything. And then, you know, if they ever come for dairy, the dairy, and there's a fair number of dairy farmers, not as many as the beef guys, but they can come for any other organization because certainly in rural Ontario, whether you're farming or not, we are outnumbered now in this. I just say that from a political perspective. We see that. I think we all understand that. And it makes it even more important to have a strong organization. I think in Ontario, there's probably maybe about as many doctors as there are farmers. And the doctors have a very strong organization. Now, they use fear tactics and, you know, they can really influence government. So I just say, you know, we talk about activism, but what we've already got are these other organizations around the province of Ontario. I think we have to continue to ask. I know OFA has been asked. I think OFA is working on it. I can't speak for OFA, but if you're members of other organizations, put them to work for you. You pay dues, you know. So strengthen organization. So I hate to keep jumping in like this, but we're looking for maybe the next steps beyond just writing a letter and getting a nice letter back from our side of it. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Come on in, Phil.
Phil Richards, board member with the Ontario Processed Vegetable Growers. Luke brought up a good point about getting out into the media, and that's up to individual growers or a group of growers. But writing a letter to Farm Products and CCing it to what we're recommending, and you got a new email today with the same, but it's to the board, to OFA, to the minister, to the deputy minister, and to Farm Products. I'll give you a little story about how effective CCing a letter is. Mr. Lugdahide here has a friend in the grocery business. I say that with tongue in cheek. He got invited to a meeting with Loblaws this year, and it came back to the fact that they were complaining to Loblaws about a logo on a can that indicated it might be Canadian when it was not Canadian product. And when they went to the meeting, one of the fellows they met with said, you know, it was all those people that you copied, like, you know, like the Minister of Agriculture, one thing, that's what got their attention. It wasn't necessarily this group complaining. It was because you told everybody else about your problem. So what Luke is saying about getting it out there to the media, but get those letters out. Some people, everybody can't write a letter like Dave wrote. Some of us are gifted in some ways, some others. But just even a short letter saying the effect this might have on your family farm, the next generation, the investment that I've put into this industry, and most of the people here, I don't have to tell them how much tomato equipment's worth when there's no tomatoes to grow or there's no money in it. I believe scraps up a little bit, but 5 cents a pound is still fairly good. And that's, you know, those are the type of things that you need to put in that letter to Farm Products and copy it to the minister and all the other ones that we recommend. And if you need help on how to word it, you can give any of us a call. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. You see, we're making some headway here. We're getting some good direction as well, and perhaps you're getting some good ideas.
Form letters mean about that much. Write something, even if you're awkward, what you write.
Yeah, John's absolutely right. You know, when my office we get inundated with form letters, and I look at, after reading about the first 5, and they're all the same, I go, yeah, okay, another form letter. But individually written and well written, and doesn't have to be long and lengthy and full of colorful words. Well, not those colorful words, but full of, you know, words that are professional, we'll say. Does get my attention. Absolutely. When I get those handwritten letters, I read them, not just once or twice. You know, and then I will respond. That's one of the policies in my office as well. I will definitely respond to a handwritten letter because they've taken the time, given a lot of thought. Yes, sir.
Question for the board members. They might know what happened to the letters that all went back in January. There were a couple hundred letters sent in at that time, which I know were in support of the marketing system the way it is. It seems to have gone into a big black hole. Is that going to happen this time again?
Phil.
That would be the reason that you CC it to more people than the other letters are CC to. We're not sure what happened to those letters. Maybe next week that'll be brought to the table. We'll meet with some members of our product commission. We don't know how many we're meeting with. But, yeah, that's, the important part is to copy the minister, copy the OFA. I neglected to say the OFA is working on this on our behalf, and they're a good ally in this. So, you know, what individual growers, however they want to get publicity, we will support it. Certainly, our best step in their way.
Perfect.
All the other farm organizations are being approached one way or another, and we have a meeting set up with the Seed Corn Board this week, one thing or another. So the Christian Farmers is an organization, we're members of them also, okay. So we're going to hit the whole spectrum here, and whether we can tell you much more next Thursday night after we meet with Farm Products, I don't know. But if anybody needs help drafting a letter, you know, we can give some direction. But we were told that a form letter isn't hardly worth anything else. So, you know, you got to write your own with your own heart.
Absolutely. We get a lot of letters sometimes that people are directed to a website, and you put your name and your address, and it prints it on the bottom of the letter, and they have maybe 3 variations of that letter on a form, and we see through that pretty quick. You know, what's impressed me tonight is the fact that, you know, your board is fighting for you, and they are pulling out all the stops, and I want to commend you for that. Don't get discouraged, friends, with sometimes, as Toby has already alluded to, in politics especially, the wheels of progress turn very slow. I mean, real slow. But still, it's moving in a positive direction. We've got to keep the pressure on. And as Toby indicated, even though we're official opposition, I think you know where we stand with you. And we need you as much as, when you can tell us, you make the bullets and we can fire them legislatively. But again, we need to know what you're thinking and what your issues and concerns are. And we'll go to bat for you as well. It's so collaboration and working together will help us achieve the results, that we need to achieve. I've heard tonight about different agendas, and that still is a question that remains to be answered. What's the real agendas? If it happens to one, well then what will it then become 2? And will that then become 4? And will that then become 8? I don't have the answer to that. I don't think anybody here has the answer. We need to get some of the fundamental questions answered, and with total honesty and transparency. And I know that in the realm of politics, that almost sounds like an oxymoron. But, I push for that. And that's one of the things that Toby and I and our party strive for, is honesty and being direct with people, and transparency, total transparency. We've put enough pressure on this government over since the last election, so it's just over 2 years now. Now, the next election isn't for another 22 and a half months. Not that anybody's counting. But please know and understand that we continue to challenge and we continue to put pressure on this government for openness and transparency. And it's comments and it's letters, from your board and from individual members that helps us put pressure on the government as well, so that we can help you achieve your ultimate goal. And again, in simple terms, save the family farm. You work hard, you fight for your families, and we don't want to see any of that destroyed. Anyone have any other final comments at all? I know we do. Good. Tell us who you are, sir.
Mark Lane. Just a general comment on fiscal responsibility. I would like to commend the existing board and the Ontario Processing Vegetable Growers as a whole over the years for being fiscally responsible. For one, to the processors, to an industry, to all the individual growers, because ultimately we have to answer to each other. If we beat each other up, if we make processors go broke because we've set a price too high, it's not beneficial to the industry. The industry has always been kept in mind throughout the negotiations. And further to that, it's a little frustrating to receive a mandate or the proposed change to Regulation 440 from a government, or it feels like from a government, that has no fiscal responsibility. If they were fiscally responsible and playing themselves in a free open market, that would be much easier to digest than what seems to be being forced down our throats at this point. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Not that anybody is keeping track, but officially this week, the Ontario debt has now just exceeded $300 billion. For whatever that's worth. Toby, you had a comment?
I was going to say the same thing.
Oh. Yeah, true. Come over here, Toby.
I'm sorry, yeah. And I don't know whether it's appropriate or not, but many of you would and other growers with the other 14 commodities, like this is an issue up in, Holland Marsh, for example, and your families, and you've been in the business for so many years, and many would know the people that are running the processing firms, and we want them to succeed. And if you got any good ideas, positive or negative, the impact on the processors. Like, sure, maybe there's a short-term gain, and maybe you get one guy that's going to supply everything, and then he goes bankrupt in 3 years, and then the processor's looking for product. So it doesn't hurt to try and continue to educate the processors as well if you have contacts with people in the company. And just the last thing I'll mention, there's 2 letters sitting on the front counter here, so please feel free to pick up a copy. It's the old story, you write a letter, but you want people to read it. You might get some ideas in there too. The letter I wrote and the letter that our Minister of Agriculture wrote back. So I just suggest pick up a letter. Thank you.
Any other comments with regards to tonight? Yes, sir.
Rob Akers. Just as processing vegetable growers, we face many challenges every day, uncertainties with weather, all that type of thing.
Sure, Rob.
With this system, this was the one thing that we had the confidence in our board that they did their homework. This wasn't just quickly, they did their work. I trust that they did their work over the years.
Mm-hmm.
We want our processors here, and they establish a fair price to keep them. And the price, just like Ron said, and John, is not just the issue. Then you come to this whole thing with the contract security, then you come up with bypass fields, and you've got issues with crop insurance and all that type of thing. But I just say, I don't know what's wrong with the system. To me, this is not democracy, this is bullying.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir. Yeah, go ahead.
Rick, and you were at our industry banquet, and I said it then, and I'll say it again tonight. My son represents the 4th generation of our family that's delivered processing tomatoes to the same factory under the same system. There are people behind the scenes in this industry. When they talk about free market, we as producers, it is very difficult to jump in and out of the processing tomato industry. We have huge investments. Mm-hmm. We have equipment, but beyond that, there's people behind the scenes. If I don't grow tomatoes next year, my staff don't have a job. Yeah. I can grow corn and beans on my own. I don't need any help to do that. I can do it. And if I lose that staff member in 2 years when the contract comes back up for, this free market system, I can't just go get that back. We've got people in this crowd that have had seasonal workers come up from Jamaica for years, that to the point where they're almost part of the family. Mm-hmm. If they don't have that tomato crop to grow next year, those guys have to move on. They have to support their family too, back home. Yeah. And when those guys are gone, you just don't get them back in 2 years when you get another chance in this free market system to grow tomatoes, right? So then you start all over with a new guy, and now you've got inexperienced help, and it just snowballs. Even in my case, or in some cases, if we don't have this tomato crop, maybe that son has to say, they have to have a hard discussion and say, listen, son, there's only so much money we can generate on this farm. Without this crop, you're going to have to look for maybe some off-farm opportunities to get by. Once that's gone, that's a hard step to get back. So it's not a question of just jumping in and out, and it's not just money, and it's not just land. There's people involved in this too. I've often said it's almost an inelastic supply. We sit down and we negotiate with these processors. we know they need us. We need them. Nobody wants the other side to walk away from the table. You know, and Rob said it. We don't want to see our processors walk away. You know, I think at the end of the day, they don't want to see their growers walk away either. They don't want to see a fourth generation grower walk out the door and, you know, maybe take on a new guy that hasn't grown tomatoes before. So, you know, there's people behind the industry, and I hope everybody respects that and knows that.
Thank you. Thank you very much, man. You know, one of the things that crossed my mind in hearing your concerns is that a free market system isn't free. And you know who's going to be paying the price? You know who's going to be paying the price. I want to commend Toby for his tireless work on this file. It's an honor for me to be a part of his team. And as he continues to go across Ontario, and he was in London, and I'm not sure where you're off to next, Toby, but he's got a number of meetings set up similar to this as well. Tonight we had, Scott, you had a comment. Go ahead. Of course, that's that Dale Carnegie training. You know that, eh?
It's appointed by the government. So that tribunal obligates to write a report back to the government or act on recommendations from the tribunal hearings. If the tribunal committee is struck and it's construed that any one of those members is in conflict of interest, what happens then? So a little bit of homework for the two of you. I don't know the answer, but I'd like to get the answer.
Okay. Thanks for the homework, Scott. We'll find out. We'll find out. Yes, sir.
Jordan Apers, I'm hoping to take over one day, but the way things seem to be going, I won't be lucky enough to. As Ron said, his son might have to take an off-farm job. Well, honestly, I want to farm more than anything, and you know, my brother. I didn't get to go to school for agriculture. I wanted to more than anything, but unfortunately, I had to go for something else and take an off-farm job. And still, after hours, be able to help out, be lucky enough to anyway. Now, if this goes, even if it stands, I won't be privileged enough to farm full time. And you know, if it goes, then I'm hoping to hand it down to my son. But then after that, you know, there's not enough to keep it going. So then eventually, all the doors close. Who's going to take on all this workload? If you have all these next generations that's constantly getting smaller and smaller land parcels to keep going, like there's no room for expansion if this goes away. And it's sad, and it's just really a shame if this goes. It makes it impossible for anybody else.
Yeah. Yeah. Sobering thoughts. Sobering thoughts, friends. Anyone else? Well, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, you've been very, very engaged, and I want to thank you for that. We've been here for just over an hour and a half now, and I don't know how the time has flown for you, but it's flown for Toby and I can vouch for that. I want to thank you for your input. I want to thank you for the board members that have come here, for everyone who has had an opportunity to share, and for those of you who chose to listen to what was going on. I hope perhaps you got some ideas. Again, want to encourage you. You've got to go to the website, correct? I'm not sure what that website is. Toby, do you know what it is?
The board has sent out emails with the contact information.
Perfect. Follow up. So let me encourage you. When you go home tonight, make a mental note. While it's still fresh, you know, respond. Go to that website. They need to hear from you. You're a voice. And don't think for 1 minute, well, I'm just one voice in a whole sea of voices, I'll never be heard. You never know. You never know. You know, we need to have you heard. But we can't hear you if you don't respond. So again, I want to thank the municipality for allowing us to occupy the chamber quarters this evening. I want to thank my staff as well, Sue and Darren, for your effort, for helping to organize this as well, and for everyone who has come here tonight. You've certainly sent Toby and I and my team a very strong message. We don't quit after tonight's meeting. You heard what's going on. Phil, next August 3rd, I believe you said, you've got meetings there as well. And I'm sure there'll be more meetings after that because there's still a whole lot of questions that need to be answered. And just be patient with your board, but again, they need your support. You started by showing up tonight, and I want to thank you for that as well. So with that, we will dismiss the meeting. Don't forget Toby's letters here if you want to get a copy of that. And we'll be around for any one-on-one afterwards as well. So having said that, you are dismissed. Thank you very much for coming tonight.